Today, I am pleased to welcome us to Automating ArcGIS Compliance for Operational Excellence. We are joined by a panel of 4 presenters today. I'll pass things over to Matt to kick off our introductions here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Mabor, and I'm a Customer Solutions Specialist here at Safe Software. And I'll pass it to Mika.
Hi, I'm Michiel Schram from the Netherlands. I'm an operational data manager, and I help out organizations to become more data-driven, and of course with FME. So, you're Rick?
Okay, I'm Rick Klopping, and I'm a specialist in JS and focusing on the automation of workflows.
Yeah, and my name is Mathieu Kokking. I'm a GIS specialist at Air Traffic Control the Netherlands. And I mainly work with FME, but also a lot with ArcGIS.
Awesome. All right, thank you to the 4 of you. Just before we dive into the webinar content, I'll go over the platform briefly if anyone's newer to it. I did just see someone in the chat mention they might have an issue with content loading. So the first step there, if you do have any video or audio issues during the webinar, is just give your page a refresh. That takes care of most issues. And then if you're still having issues, the help button has 3 other simple steps to take. The emoji button, we love to see how you're reacting to content as we go. People are already using it, love that. So please do keep using that. It fuels us. We love to see how everyone's engaging with the content. And then we do have the questions tab. So on the bottom right, please make use of that and leave any questions you might have during the webinar. We will have dedicated time at the end for answering questions live. And the chat, keep letting us know where you're tuning in from, or if you have any comments during the webinar. You can also download the deck with that button on the top right. All right, so from here, I will pass things over to Matt to go through our agenda and take us into our introduction. And I'll prompt the rest of our presenters to turn off webcams to save on some bandwidth here.
All right, hello, everyone. So we're going to do a brief introduction, and then we'll pass it to Sweco to introduce the solution they've built using FME and its architecture. We have Matthew here today from Air Traffic Control in the Netherlands to talk about a real-world implementation of the solution. We'll touch a little bit on AI and conclude, provide you with some resources related to today's webinar, and have some time for QA. So we're going to just do a brief introduction here, and then I'll pass it to Sweco. So for anyone who is new to the FME platform, I suspect most of you have used it, but just in case, we offer flexible deployment options, and we have 3 key components of the platform that you see on the slide here. So FME Form is your authoring environment where you build your data integration workflows on a visual canvas. So it's a no-code platform, but of course you can code if you want to. We support Python. And then these workflows can be published up to FME Flow, where you can do a lot more with them, like create automations, like Sweco's done with their solution today, or web applications. FME Flow can be deployed on-premise or in your private cloud, or we also offer FME Flow deployed in a fully hosted AWS environment. That's called FME Flow Hosted. And lastly, we have FME Realize, which is a newer application to the platform. This lets you get 3D models delivered using Form and Flow in the backend to a mobile device so you can experience your data in augmented reality. And we have great support for data integration that has grown over the years. Yeah, so when we first started, we were very focused on GIS and geospatial data. Then over the years, we responded to our customers' needs and now support over 500 different data types. So from geospatial data through to location intelligence, our goal is really to enable you to use your data where and when it's needed, regardless of its type. So for example, the compliance results that will be discussed in the webinar today, these could be delivered to SharePoint, Jira, as you'll see in the example today, cloud storage, databases, things like that, just to name a few. And We're also always adding new or improved formats. So we have a new, for example, document PDF writer, always improving our AI connectors. OpenAI is just one of them. And new features like data virtualization that allow you to build your own REST APIs and open even more integration options. So we'll hear these two words in the webinar today, governance and compliance. So just to briefly touch on them, governance is about doing the right things and compliance is about doing things right. So your organization's governance defines the rules and processes to ensure you're compliant with laws, policies, and standards, both internal and external. And why does this matter? Why does compliance matter? Well, we want to avoid legal risks, as was brought up in our chat storm, and reputational damage, prevent those costly publishing errors, protect sensitive data, make sure it hasn't been made public when it shouldn't be, ensure consistent configurations. And through all of this, we want to build operational trust. So we want users to have confidence in our ArcGIS Enterprise portal and any other systems that we have to enforce compliance on by knowing that there's governance around them and the data they store, and that helps confidence and usage in the system. But compliance can be tricky to enforce. Some of the challenges around this and frustrations people face are, development services accidentally published to production, inconsistent naming conventions and duplication of items, improper, if we're dealing with Esri geodatabases, improper connection usage, limited visibility perhaps into what has changed when and how. And you might have manual reviews and audits in place to try and catch these things, but due to the time involved and everyone's busy, they are often catching these issues after the damage has been done. So that's where a solution to automate your ArcGIS Enterprise compliance is needed. And that really is a good time to pass it over to Mikkel now to discuss such a solution.
Thank you, Matt, for this for setting the stage and this brief introduction. And I'm going into the into the solution and the why. Why did we use FME for that? Actually, once upon a time, there was a hosting team. Rick is one of his members. It's about 2.5 years ago. And we're really in need of automating compliance. We host lots of GIS services for our clients. And we need overview. We're ISO certificated and we want to keep that. And Rick started building 2.5 years on that platform. And he actually made a great solution that's now ready to share and to be adopted by other people. And so we started showing it around. We did Rick did that in Shadow at the UC, and there's lots of people that are very enthusiastic about it. But first, there are other software that can be used to get insight on your ArcGIS portal. We have Ripple. In August, there was a webinar hosted by Safe Software on Ripple, and it shows all the relations within your portal. We have Gaia Builder. Gaia Builder is more some kind of a tool for web developers to migrate systems. And then we lately released the Portal Explorer. Portal Explorer is a software product actually also made by the hosting team that's now available for everyone. And it also gives you an insight on what's happening on your portal. But all these tools are not really suitable for compliance, because compliance, you need to automate things, and compliance, you need to adapt to the rules. You should be very flexible. And that's why we made another approach, and we used FME for that. So what we like to do is that we we do not only want to focus on technology, but we also want to focus on the processes that are going on within an organization. And actually the people, when you look at all the answers in the chat, a lot is about working together and doing things together. And what we want to do is we want to serve our clients with a solution that hits that sweet spot, and that's configurable, that can adapt to an organization. And actually, I don't think that solution that runs at Sweco is the same solution that runs at LVNL. And that's one thing we know for sure. So we need to be flexible, but we do have a great platform to build up from. And we use FME. We have the basic setup that Rick and his team made, and we're now ready to engage and to, well, start talking to our clients and start implementing the solution. Because we don't want to sell a product, we want to serve our clients with a flexible solutions that fits our needs. So we do exploration talks, we do demos, we try to do webinars, we try to do all kinds of stuff to make the right implementation for the client. So if a client wants to use email, that's okay. If our client wants to use Jira for reporting, that's okay. If they want to have their data-driven compliance rules in Excel, it's fine. Whatever software system you're using, it should adapt to that. So, and that's actually what our tool is about, and what Rick's going to show. Because FME is so much more than a spatial data transformation tool. I started about 15 years ago, and it was a very small, when the lizard still existed, a very small world. But nowadays, FME is getting quite big, and it's really an integration tool that is not only about spatial anymore, and it's really well integrated. So, Rick, now it's your turn to show the solution and tell us how.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to show you more about the compliance tool. First, I will give you a brief overview of the components we're using, and then we move into a demo to also see a little bit the technique behind it in the FME Flow automation. Sure. So it all starts with data, and data lives in your ArcGIS platform, ArcGIS portal, or ArcGIS Online. And often organizations have a kind of working agreements. How are we going to use that application? How do we ensure everything runs smooth? Well, what we do is we convert those working agreements to data-driven working agreements. And that means we can use it in an automation. So we use FME Flow, we use FME Form. And in FME Form, we have, for example, an item in our ArcGIS portal, for example, a web map. And we have our working agreements. And what we can do is when we bring those data streams together, we can check if that item complies to our working agreements. For example, we have naming convention, and using FME, we can easily check if an item complies to naming convention. And what we then can do is we can publish this workspace to FME Flow. And we use FME Flow as an integration tool. So that means we can connect FME Flow with ArcGIS Enterprise, ArcGIS Online. And at the moment you save something in ArcGIS Enterprise, or when you publish a new service, we get a notification in our FME Flow automation. And from there, we can do some audits. And then what's also very important, we can interact with the users. So the person who saved an item or published the service. Well, at Sweco, we use Jira a lot. So when I save an item now in our ArcGIS portal, and for example, the naming convention is not according to the rules we agreed on, then it will be added to Jira. And the item will be automatically assigned to the name of the person that saved it or published it. And when he works on that item again, it moves from the to-do to the in progress bucket. And when he solves the issue with the name, then we can automatically move this item to the done bucket. And Jira is just an example. Because we use FME as an integration tool, it can be anything. It can be email, DevOps, Microsoft Planner, whatever suits the organization the best. And now it's time for our demo. There we go. So what happens in practice is we create a web map, we save it. And when we save this web map, yeah, it's working again. When we save this web map, at the moment we click on the save button, we send a payload with the information and the item ID, who saved that web map. We send it to FME Flow. There we go. So as I just said, when I press on the save button, a webhook will be sent to our FME Flow. And here we start the automation. First, we move the change to a queue. So we save the item ID and the user to a queue. And we do this because we notice that when somebody works on a portal item, often they do multiple changes in a short amount of time. Or when publishing a service, in the background, it will trigger this automation multiple times. So using a queue, we can gather those changes and wait, for example, 30 seconds, 1 minute, depends on the organization, the speed of the organization, how it works, and then we only use the last trigger. What we then do is we configure the trigger. And we can configure this easily for each organization. So first, we define the environment. Now it's our development environment. We give it a name. We have a specific audit for this environment. So it's different for our test, acceptance, and production environment. We now use it with authentication. We can also use it without authentication, or we could use a user that is not an admin, but just a standard user. It always gives different results. And then we have a mode. So now we're using an ad hoc run because we changed something in Portal and we want to check it immediately if it complies to our working agreements. And finally, we have an output. And here we define how we are going to communicate with the end user. And for now, we filled in Jira and email. So they will both get a notification in Jira and email, but we can also do one of them or, something else. And that depends on what the organization uses. Then we configure the automation for a certain environment. So what we fill in here is the URL of ArcGIS Portal, ArcGIS Server, but it can also be ArcGIS Online. And then we filter the trigger. So we have 3 types of runs. First, we have an ad hoc run. So it runs instantly when you change something. Then we have a full scan. And with a full scan, we can scan the entire environment. And lastly, we have a cleanup run. And the cleanup run is more like a management run to maintain our database. Well, for now, we only focus on the ad hoc run. So when something happens now in ArcGIS Portal, it will end up here. So the item that we just saved, it was in the queue. And now we check the queue if there's an item available. There is. So we will pick it up. And then we will go into the split merge block. We fetch the information of the user that published it or changed it. And then we can fetch the data of the item. Well, because it's a web map, it will follow the line from order till an extended audit. And this is the audit where we can use the working agreements, the data-driven working agreements that have been defined in, in this case, an Excel file. Now it's an Excel file, but for us, it doesn't matter where we define those rules. You can also configure it with, for example, SharePoint list or in the database itself. It's not important where we save it, as long as we can access it using FME. And again, because we're using FME as an integration tool, we can easily link it to a system that an organization is already using. If it would have been a service, then we would first fetch the information of that service, and then we can do two types of audits. The first one, baseline audit, it's where we check if the service complies with the standard ESRI security guidelines. And we also have a privacy audit. And for the privacy audit, we also use AI to help us to assess if something contains sensitive data. And more on that later. Then we have an option to aggregate the results. This is only needed when we do a full system scan, because we don't want to get, well, a few thousand emails. No. So we just aggregate those. And for now, well, it's just one item. So we continue to the output. And well, in the beginning, we filled in that we want to use Jira and mail. So what happens now? Here it will send the information to Jira. When there is no item for that, and when there's no issue for that item available, then it will create one. If there is already one available, then it will update it. And well, at a later moment, somebody solved that issue, then it will be automatically moved to the done bucket. So as an admin, you don't have to do a lot. Only check in when something is very urgent, or when it stays too long in the to-do bucket or in the doing bucket. And then we have also mail. So we send the user an email when we detect an issue for the first time. And in the end, when the issue has been solved, they can get a confirmation email that explains them, you have solved the issue now. You don't need to do anything anymore. So that's the automation in a nutshell. So a few key takeaways. So first, it's very important to align the processes with the technology. Only with technology and processes, well, you cannot do a lot. You have to combine it. And the next step is to make your working agreements that you already have data-driven, and use this application to empower the users. Because we notice that compliance works best when you support the users and not when you are enforcing them. So you don't want to be like a police officer that says you have to do this in a certain way. Now you want to explain them things. So when somebody sees a ticket in Jira, we also explain why we have certain working agreements. So they understand that. And over amount of time, well, in the beginning you have lots of issues. And maybe in a few months, you will notice that some issues will never occur anymore. And well, that's the goal, because then you build to a reliable environment and prevent issues. And what we also did is we often we often have a chat with people from different organizations, and we notice that they have different questions. So here I defined 3 common target groups. There are more, but one important one is the compliance officer. So most of the companies in the Netherlands, they have a compliance officer, and he's mainly interested in, for example, data leaks. So when there is a data leak, he will be informed. Then we have the GIS specialists, and they work on a day-to-day basis on applications in ArcGIS portal, creating web maps, viewers, and well, they are sometimes under a lot of pressure. So they want to be supported with this application. And then we have the admins, and they are focused on security. So everything what happens, is it secure or not? So now I'm going to explain the 3 audits. So the first audit, the baseline audit, is interesting for the admins. So we can check the system service permissions. So we can check if the system services are shared with the people we should share them with and not with others. Also interesting is that we can detect anonymous access to services, and in combination with the capabilities of servers. So when a service has add, update, delete capabilities, and it's shared publicly, then we could have an issue in our production environment, because that means everybody can change the data that is used there. And we also have a rule that prevents system sharing through portal. So when there's an item for a system service, it can be shared easily via portal, and that's something we want to prevent. So these are just 3 examples. We follow the rules, the guidelines, security guidelines by Esri, and we can share the link later on in the chat. But with each change, so when somebody publishes a service or edits it, we can do these checks. Then we have flexible data-driven rules. So we noticed that for each organization, they struggle with different problems. And it's the same problem that we want to manage our environment. That's in a way that suits our organization. But the difficulty is that we are all doing it in a slightly different way. And for one organization, they are more focused on security, and one organization is less focused on security, and maybe they want to support it. They want to give their users more freedom. So using those data-driven working agreements, it's easy to define working agreements that are relevant for an organization. And when something happens in a production environment, for example, an issue with a service, and it's caused by somebody migrating an application from their development environment to production. And in the background, you're still using that development service in a production application. Well, those things can happen. But using this application, using this compliance tool, it will be automatically detected. And the person that does the migration will be informed. And he can solve it straight away. So you won't have that situation where after a few days, weeks, or months, somebody knocks on your door and says, what happened with our application? Why do I see dummy data? So for us, it's a very valuable application. And again, we focus on guidance. So we want to give the responsibility to the users, because they have the knowledge about the system. They know what they want to build, but it happens that they make mistakes. They are under pressure. They have a deadline. Maybe they have had a long working days with a lot of issues, and then it's easy to make just a small mistake. And using the compliance tool, they get a reminder in Jira or in their email, and they can solve it straight away. And it saves a lot of hours, because when you have to fix this after a few months, or you have to dive into it all again. Then we have the privacy audit, and for this we use AI. So using AI, we can detect and flag sensitive data automatically, and AI is very good at this. And when we detect something, for example, sensitive data in a service, and maybe the service is also shared publicly, we will inform the right people automatically. So we can inform, for example, our privacy officer in the Netherlands, and they have the permissions to investigate this issue, and they can, if needed, they can take down the service. And data virtualization in the newest version of FME, it's a very interesting option, because a privacy officer, he speaks like a different language. We as a GIS, consultant, we are talking about feature services, data, and for them it can be difficult. So using data virtualization, when you can look into the past issues, And as a privacy officer, you can ask AI to just explain it in, well, a way that they also understand. And now I would like to give the floor to Mathieu from Air Traffic Control the Netherlands, and they are using the compliance tool too.
Yes, thank you, Rick. So at LVNL, or Air Traffic Control the Netherlands, we have a GIS team consisting of 3 full-time employees. And each year we host an intern for a few months. We also work closely with Sweco on new product launches. For all of this, it's essential that we follow the same processes. Documentation and manuals help guide us, but mistakes can still happen, especially with such a dynamic team. Well, we already had implemented a compliance workspace ourselves for FME Flow to check workspaces from FME. We're still missing a solution for ArcGIS Enterprise and Portal Online. So when Sweco gave us a demonstration of their compliance tool, it was clear that this could be of great help for us. Oh, sorry, I missed the first slide. So, second one. We use a ticket system that monitors a dedicated email address, and this helps our team keep track of all requests. So that is for all issues coming from from outside the company or internal. And for now, any issue found by the compliance tool is reported by email to this system. In the future, we may switch to Microsoft Planner, which we already use for tasks internal at the GIS, because this can help with planning and also direct reporting to the right person. In addition to the rules that come standard with the tool, we have implemented some customizations. For example, specific rules have been configured for the exact location of APRX files from ArcGIS Pro, which are saved on our network drive. At the moment, we use a script that copies an APRX with SDE connections from the test environment, then updates the SDE connections to acceptance, and later on for production. And because of this process, the APRX files are stored in different specific folders on our network drive. When publishing a map to ArcGIS Enterprise, the system checks then that these locations are correct. During a test run on our system with a full scan, we discovered a production GIS viewer, which fortunately was not yet live, that was still pointing to our testing environment. Immediate issue reporting increases confidence in our GIS platform. The ability to perform this full system scan and identify past errors gives us the chance to plan rework and improve our products. So although the solution has only been live for a short time, we were already seeing positive improvements. And then I want to pass it on to Rick again.
Okay, well, thank you, Mathieu. And I will continue with the last part of this webinar. And it's about the potential of AI-powered detection. So as I told you before, we're using AI for privacy assessment. And first, it's very valuable because it's impossible to check everything manually. So if you have, well, maybe a few hundred feature services, well, and they contain a lot of data, maybe tens of thousands of records. How do you know if it contains sensitive data? We as a user, we can check, well, the column names, we can check the data in the columns, but AI is way better at it. And we could detect it using FME, just using an if, or just using a tester. Yeah? If column name is ID, then, but AI is so much better at this and way faster. So we can check the column names, we could check the data. And the best thing is we can use Azure OpenAI, which means we use a recent large language model and the data stays within our organization. For us, it's very interesting because we have been doing this for, well, years now, checking if services contain sensitive data. But now large language models are available. We are still doing the same process, but in a way smarter way and even faster. And we can detect issues, well, at the moment they occur and solve them within minutes. So for us, it's a very valuable tool, and also for customers that well, are also aware of this tool. Then I will pass it over to Elizabeth.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mikkel and Rick and Matthew, for all your time and sharing today's content. We really appreciate it. And it looks like the audience got a lot of value as well, and some great questions that have already come in. So looking forward to our question period at the end here. But this is a good time to remind everyone, if you do have any more questions for the team here, please do get those in. We're about 5 minutes out from our live question period. So we look forward to that. Thank you so much to the three of you once again for your time in preparing today's content. All right. You'll also see Mikkel and Rick's emails on the screen there. So if you do have any questions after the webinar, you're more than welcome to reach out to their team at Sweco as well. Okay. From here, I will pass things over to Matt to go through our conclusion.
Great. Thank you again, Rick, Mikkel, and Matthew. So in summary, compliance is critical, but can be overlooked since it's difficult to manage on your own. So the solution shown today, built using FME, can help you be confident that you have a compliant ArcGIS Enterprise or Online deployment with strong governance, and can help notify you of compliance issues in the system or format used by your organization, and in a much more timely manner, catch things before they become a problem. So a little bit about Safe Software. We have been in Canada for over 30 years. We're based in Surrey, British Columbia. FME is a very established product. It's used all over the world by our customers and partners to deliver solutions to their data challenges. And FME can work with your data regardless of its type, where it lives, or its velocity. So whether that velocity is batch data or streaming data from IoT devices, wherever that data is located, on cloud, on premise, some combination of both. What type of data, structured or unstructured, spatial. And we support any AI technology that works for the task you're trying to do. So we're not limited to one or two. We support many different AI connections as shown here. Okay, Elizabeth, I'll give it back to you to discuss some resources and lead us into the Q&A.
Fantastic. Yeah, so just a couple minutes before questions here, I'll go through some resources. The team did put together this slide with some resources that will be handy to help you get started on this topic. Just a reminder, you can download the deck on the top right, so I don't risk, spamming the chat with all these links here. Download the deck, and then you can actually click through the links directly if you'd like to take a further look into these. And then at SAFE, we are all about free resources. If you are newer to SAFE software, our academy is home to free instructor-led training. We also have hundreds of on-demand webinars. So if you're looking to learn more about other topics, please feel free to check out that page and search depending on what you're looking for. next steps to take here today. Once again, if you're newer, our accelerator course is a great place to start learning the basics of FME. And also I'd like to highlight contacting Sweco. So if you have any further questions about compliancy issues that you might be running into, feel free to request a free demo with them and get in touch with Sweco directly. They're one of our amazing partners offering services. And I'm actually going to drop that link directly in the chat too, in case anyone wants to access that right away. And our community badge. So as a thank you for joining us today, we have a badge code you can redeem if you like to redeem those in the community. And if that doesn't sound familiar to you, our community is a great place to network with other users alike and experts. So feel free to check out community.safe.com. All right, I will invite our presenting team back on the stage here. And we've got 15 minutes remaining, which is awesome because we had a lot of great questions come in. And we can get started looking at the questions panel here. Was there any team that we might want to get started with today?
Oh, let's see.
Yeah, lots of good questions about the solution.
The Ripple one. So we have the Portal Explorer. Actually, the link of that is in the slide. And there's a nice video about Portal Explorer. We'd love to demo them as well. So if you want to demo of that, well, follow the demo link. And the Gaia Builder, when you Google on Gaia Builder, then it's, well, it's the first hit you have. And Gaia Builder is actually for developers, for deploying your portals and making that kind of decisions. So we actually use that kind of tools on top of the, well, the compliance tools is on top of all those tools, but yeah, but actually it's not just one software suite we're using several, and well, compliance is where we want to do our fine tuning and actually look into everything that's happening and react on that.
Then I see a question: to access the item properties in FME, do you use the new API keys or just the technical user? What we're doing is we are using the API of well, ArcGIS Portal. And I see also a lot of technical questions. Do you use cache location in your script? And have you encountered any issues or the cache space limitation? Well, we haven't encountered any issues yet. That's also how we, well, organize the tool. Because we can do a full system scan, and well, we scan maybe a few thousand items. And what we do is we have, instead of we have one big workspace, we have a lot of small workspaces, and well, each workspace runs like 1, 2, or 3 seconds. Mm-hmm. So in this way, we don't encounter really, well, cache space issues.
Yeah, but when you're working with bin files like Ming Young is doing, then it's a different sport. It's about very large files, and actually I did a talk on the UC 4 years ago about speeding up your workspaces, and actually there are some quite good tips in it as well, so you can look it up, and then the tips to make large files work for you in FME, because that's a specialty. That's not very easy.
Let's see. I see a question from Eric mentioning AI. What type of AI do you use? Company owned or public? Well, we're using Azure OpenAI, so it's a service of Microsoft. And using that service, we can use their large language models within our own company. So the data also stays within our own company.
Yeah, and I also love the webinar from SAFE about AI in FME. They really made a good explanation of how they're using it within workflow. And it might be worth looking at that because that's also a possibility within the compliance tool to set it up that way. We're so lucky that we have our own AI environment, but not every company has that. And when you just send the metadata of your services, then it might be a little bit more safe to use open AI platforms. And well, that's the way SAFE is doing that. So.
Okay, then I see the question from Lewis. In case where the admin compliance officer is alerted the publication of confidential data in the REST service, would it be possible to stop the service proactively? Well, it's possible. At this moment, we have not configured it because we mainly focus on supporting the users. So at this moment, we inform them, but it could be, well, I wouldn't say it's simple, but it's like a possibility in, for example, Excel or well, SharePoint, wherever you have your working guidelines configured, to well, also have an option for services to maybe switch them off.
Yeah, but of course there's also a downside on AI because every time you ask a question on AI, you get a different answer. That's normal. We're getting used to that. So it can be that one time the compliance tool says, well, there's not sensitive data, and then a moment later it says it is. So we're trying to get into that and fine-tuning it so it's getting better results, and we're learning from AI. But AI is new, and we have to learn to live with it and, well, use it as an assistant so that people are notified and can react on it is more important than you can directly shut it automatically down, because AI is wrong sometimes. And, well, we still have to learn.
Yeah. But also regarding other item types, for example, a web map, and it contains services of a different environment. Well, it could be possible that you, for example, want to isolate that web map or well, do something else with it. At the moment, we don't have it configured, but well, that's not there. It can get there in the future.
Yeah. When your flow checks the properties of your portal item, do you use REST API? Yes.
Yeah, we're using REST API.
Actually, not the Python API. Actually, the compliance tool, we set it up with using as much native transformers as possible, because that's the power of FME. FME is maintained for you, and you don't want to maintain it yourself. And well, I hate those projects when there's lots of Python within workspaces, because then you have to maintain it forever. So I always like to bring it down that SAFE is, well, responsible for maintenance, and that we're not. So that's the way we set up the compliance tool. SAFE is maintaining it for us. Well, the technical part, of course. Oh, data-driven working agreement. That's my thing. Data-driven is quite a nasty thing, actually. Well, data-driven means that you can configure it in data. So actually what we do, we store some kind of SQL statements to check on certain issues, or we make how you have a list of no-goes, or you have a list of projects. So for example, at Sweco, we have an API when you can ask what projects are running at this moment. And when you have a naming convention that says you should use a valid project number, then we can ask our Sweco API, well, is this project number a valid project number? And then within the compliance tool, you get an answer, well, you use a not valid one. So that's what I mean with data-driven, that everything you're touching, you make data out of it that you can use within FME, and it's not text written.
Okay, then I see a question. what happened in the demo? What data are you auditing in the web map? I did not see anything as data in the web map except the high resolution image. Indeed, you didn't see the data that comes with the web map, but in the background, we can collect a lot of information about the web map. Who published it, when it has been published, for example, the name, all services that are configured in the web map. So this was a web map in our development environment, but we could have added servers from our production environment in that web map. And the compliance tool then detects that you're using a production service in a development web map. Well, and we have a working agreement that we are only using the services of the same environment, for example, in this case, the development environment, in a development application.
Yeah, and Tamara, yes, we do everything with webhooks. That's well the way to go. To when something changed, then we collect those changes. We have some kind of a delay, and then after that, those are processed. And well, we do it in 30 seconds, 1 minute, but you can also do it every week when your company is not ready to do it every second. So it's what you want.
Indeed. And what also relevant is to mention those webhooks when FME Flow is not available and ArcGIS Enterprise is trying to send information to a webhook, to FME Flow, then the webhook will be disabled because it cannot reach FME Flow. So we also have a process that we check: is the webhook in ArcGIS Portal still accessible? And if not, we can inform an admin so they can have a look what happened and turn it on again.
Yeah. And I think for now, all questions are answered.
No, there are 2 new questions at the top.
2 new questions.
I see the last question in the bottom.
It's helpful.
When you mention Portal, are you referring to ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise? Well, both. But there is a difference in it because in ArcGIS Enterprise, we have ArcGIS Portal there. We can configure the webhook for each change. And ArcGIS Online works slightly different. So there we cannot check each change that has been made to an item. So if an item has been created, edited, or when a service has been published. So there we do it on a schedule. So we can do it every hour, every day, every week. It depends on what the organization needs. So sometimes it's not necessary to have instant feedback, but a delay of a few hours or days is okay for them.
Yeah, actually what we do right now for clients that we scan their systems, just put the open part and give them feedback. That's some kind of our business model, and we can set it up as a service because we have that hosting team and that are capable of doing that. So actually you don't have to use FME yourself. We can do this as well for you. So just get in touch and then we can discuss what we can offer and how we can make you automate compliance.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, and if it's helpful, Mikkel and Rick, you can also sort the questions by not answered at the top left. There's a handy little sort feature there. I think we just have 1 or 2 left here.
Answered.
Little one. You use Azure AI. I imagine just asking AI if there are any privacy issues in my portal, but I suppose it's not that easy. No, it's not that easy. In AI, you also have to configure, you have to give them clear instructions on how you want to get the results back. So In practice, it's a little bit more complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, but in simple words, you do some kind of ranking, and then when it ranks above a certain level, then we assume that it's well, privacy. So yes, we made a prompt for that, and we're getting better at doing that, but still learning.
Indeed, and we improving the prompt well every week, I think.
Okay, well, we are just past the top of the hour here, so I want to extend a huge thank you once again to Michael and Rick and Matthew for your time in preparing today's content and presenting. It's always fantastic to get a new use case and real world story. So looks like our audience really appreciated it as well. And big thank you to our whole audience for joining today, taking the time. And Matt as well, thank you for your time in hosting this webinar with me. We hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day ahead. I will leave the webinar running a couple more minutes. So if you do have any last minute questions, feel free to get those into the questions tab and we can respond via the chat there, or via the typing in the questions tab rather. And lastly, if you do have a moment to fill out our webinar survey, we really appreciate any feedback. It helps us continue to improve our program. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And once again, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye for now.